The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for attending our webinar this evening. Before we get rolling, I'd like to launch a couple of polls to get an idea of who's watching. And by the way, anytime there's any questions or technical issues, type into the questions area in your control panel. And Steve, who's my technical moderator here, will try to fix that and let me know something's going on. Okay. So let me launch the first poll, which is what level do you coach? So just click as many as is appropriate, and we'll tally that up real quickly here as soon as everybody has gotten their votes in. Almost done. Okay, let me close that poll and share the results. Hope you can see that. All right, so it looks like we've got a combination of high school and club this evening. Last night we had about 25% college coaches in the mix, so here we go. And of course, you know, many of you are doing both, so that's why the numbers don't tally up to 100. Okay. All right, so let's go to the next poll. Here we go. So this is asking you what products do you use? All right, so go ahead and click and let me know. So we're about half done now. Almost there. A couple more votes here, and we'll be ready to go. Okay, let me go ahead and close the poll and share the results. All right, so a pretty even mix of usage. This evening we have no Solo Stats video users. Last night we had a few. And we'll be doing a quickie demo on all these products so you get an idea of how they integrate into this whole statting methodology that we're talking about here. Okay, so let me hide those and let's go to the final question, which is other products that you are using. All right. So let's get our votes in here real quick. Just click on whatever that applies here. And so here we go. About halfway done. A couple more coming in. We're almost done here. Hang on. One more voting. Okay, let me close the poll and share the results. Pretty even mix here, all right? So ACE, iStat, VBall, iVolley, and other are all at the 20% mark here, okay? All right, well, thanks for taking the poll. Let me hide those results and let's dive in. Thanks for attending the WinNow Personalized Coaching System webinar here. We're going to talk about 4 key insights to execute a 30% increase in match wins this season, so you can turn a losing season into a winning season and a winning season into a championship season. So let me talk to you a little bit about me. I've been around volleyball for quite a long time. Let me fix this 1 second here. And you know, the rules have changed pretty dramatically. When I attended Stanford in the early 70s, I played on the club team there, and because it was a club team, I actually had to take over the program and coached in my last 2 years there as we went from club varsity to varsity status in 1976. I spent 30 years in Silicon Valley as a software marketing guy, and I got back into coaching about 10 years ago when my son got interested in the game, and now he's in college. I started coaching girls and found it to be very challenging because my experience was all around boys and men's volleyball. So I did the next best thing, which was to start attending coaching clinics, and so I got my USA Volleyball CAP 1 and 2 certifications, went to gold medal square sessions, Art of Coaching Volleyball, and of course attended a lot of AVCA conventions starting in Omaha in 2008, and they've just got a tremendous number of seminars. These were all fantastic, and I learned a lot about, you know, teaching volleyball. And one of the things I learned was the importance of taking stats. And so in the process of learning about this, building this company, taking a lot of stats, I've also become an instructor, and I've taught over 500 coaches about how to use stats to improve their team's performance. And this is at the AVCA convention and webinars, USAV CAP, and the Art of Coaching Volleyball. Now let's talk about the 5 killers of a winning season. Right, here's the first one. Right, how often do you lose by 23-25, 21-25, or 19-25? By the time you get to 1925, of course, that happens a lot. And boy, if you could turn those into wins, what would your season look like? Right, it'd be dramatically different. Now, here's an important point. Okay, Dr. Gil Fellingham, a professor of statistics at BYU, did a study, and he found out that if your side out percentage improves by just 2%, your win rate goes up by 28%. Right, so that's a pretty subtle thing, and I'll describe exactly how subtle that is. And the other key thing to remember is that because we're rally scoring, the margin between the point spreads is a lot narrower than it actually looks, right? Because typically you gain, they lose, or you lose, they gain, and that gap is way closer than the old days of side out scoring. So if you look at a typical game, typical set is 20 serves. So if you just eliminate one receive error, that's 1 in 20, or 5%. And if your side out efficiency is 50%, that means it takes 2 serves for you to get the ball back, right? That's 5% times 50% equals 2.5%. So that's literally all you need to really change your season, okay? So improving your error rates on your receives would really change your season's results. Now, the next one is, do you run the same system and drills every year? So every year you have different players, and even the same players change in abilities, attitude, size, and strength. And your competition certainly changes. So shouldn't you be considering customizing your systems and drills to extract the most out of your team? So the third one is, have you optimized every rotation? Now, that's a little screenshot of Rotate 1, 2, 3, which is exactly what the product's for. And so rotation optimization is a key methodology for extracting the most out of the talent you have. Because remember, right, skill improvement happens slowly, but you can really teach positions and systems and strategies much faster. Now, the fourth item is, do you really understand stats? So there's two parts of this. The first part is an example. Hitter A hits 300, hitter B hits 200. Who's better, right? And the second is, do you have too many stats and don't know what to do? And I guarantee you I've gone through this process, so this is not unusual. So to know who's better, you need to understand the context and what level of competition. And having a lot of stats is overwhelming, but will help you cut through the clutter. And in fact, we'll give you a little takeaway guide towards the end of this presentation. So let's go back to the hitter example. In this case, let's provide a little bit more information. Meg is a 200 hitter. She has a 60% kill rate. She has 6 kills, 4 errors on 10 attempts. Sam, on the other hand, is a 300 hitter. She has a 30% kill rate. It's 3 kills, no errors on 10 attempts, right? So then, same question, who's the better hitter? Now, the answer is, it depends on your opponent, right? So against a really good opponent who has a dig to kill ratio of 33%, that means that every third ball they dig, they're going to attack and score on you. In Meg's case, because she doesn't leave any balls in play, she's plus 2 points. In Sam's case, she has 3 kills, but she leaves 7 balls in play, and so 2 go against you, so she nets out at plus 1. So in this case, Meg is the better hitter. However, against a poor opponent who hits a lot of balls out and has a very low transitional kill rate, right? In the case of Meg, same thing, no balls in play, plus 2. In Sam's case, you're all the way up to plus 5 net points. So in this case, Sam's the better hitter. So as you can see, it depends on your opponent's skill level, which player you pick, as your primary hitter. It also depends on your goal, right? Do you want to win this match, or do you want to develop your players for future years? Or is it a combination of both? I think a lot of times it's always a balancing act, right? Particularly at the juniors level. Now, learning to swing hard is important for future play. Learning to swing smart is important for both current and future play. What's your goal? So the fifth item is, do you spend 15 to 30 minutes each practice warming up, doing running, DROM, stretching before you touch the ball? Now here's Bill Neville, who's a former USA national team coach. He teaches a seminar called Stop Wasting Time Running Around the Gym. I took this in the early phases when I was getting my CAP 1 certification, was kind of dumbfounded by the whole thing. And he says, you're robbing your team of thousands of touches, and warm-ups have been shown scientifically that they don't reduce injury. So let's do the math on this, right? In a typical school season, let's say it's 20 minutes of practice time you spend warming up without the ball. 5 days a week, 2 hours a day times 10 weeks is 1,000 minutes, or 16 hours or 8 days of practice, right? So you're putting your team behind by quite a bit here, almost 2 weeks, okay? So, you're robbing your team of thousands of touches, and you can just use the ball to warm up slowly. In fact, you can even do slow, challenging games during your warm up. Now, if you say yes to 2 or more of these items, right, then we can help you have a better season. So why stats matter? Well, when you go to any of these clinics, the Bible now is Moneyball, right? So it really brought the importance of statistics to light. And here's a key quote from Michael Lewis. Some coaches believe they could judge a player's performance simply by watching it. In this, they were deeply mistaken, okay? And remember, these are Major League Baseball coaches making multi-million-dollar decisions incorrectly. So shouldn't we be smarter than this? So here's my story. First, the roadblocks to getting better at this whole thing. The first phase was just trying to do better rotations with my team and using, paper and pencil took hours. It's kind of how Rotate 1, 2, 3 was invented. The second part was taking stats. Products were hard to use and they were expensive. And of course, the iPad didn't ship until 2010. So once I had stats, I really didn't know what to do. There were no seminars on using stats. And I have a bachelor's in engineering and an MBA from Stanford, so I'm highly analytical, yet it was really hard for me to figure out what to do with all these numbers. So I had to do a deep dive and also reach out to key members of the ABCA. Now, Jamie Morrison is the current assistant coach with Karch Karai on the women's team. He did 8 years with Hugh McCutcheon, both on the men's and the women's side, as a chief statistician and assistant coach. Now, between those 2 gigs, he was an assistant at UC Irvine and a club coach, and he picked up a copy of Solo Stats and he gave me a call and asked me for some features. So I listened, and with his background, it's hard to deny a guy with that much experience. Todd Dajaday is a head coach at the University of Central Florida, and he's also a USAV Cap 1 and 2 coach, instructor. And he was one of a few guys that had a stats seminar, and I got to know him very well, and he's been a great mentor in this area. He's a smart guy and has a lot of good ideas. Rob Bean is the head coach of Oakland University in Michigan, and he did a rare study of high school volleyball success factors. Now, it's rare because almost all the studies that have been done have been D1 at the upper levels and international volleyball play. So there's very little stats in the juniors area. And in fact, that's something that we'll be working on because we have statistics for about 50,000 matches across the country in our system. Now, what I learned is that stats really don't mean anything without context, as you saw in the case of hitting, right? The quality of your league and your competition and your goals of winning versus development. Right, so let's look at the next table. So on the left side, you see the level of play. We have novice, intermediate, advanced, and some actual examples of statistics. So the first one is a side-out rate, right? So how long does it take to get the ball back? So the novice level, right, it's pretty bad. I mean, you can sit there, and because the serving is so much more ahead of the receiving, a player can sit there and just serve and reel off like 15 points and nothing happens the rest of the time. People just waiting around for something to happen with the server missing or something like that. Now, as of course the level of play gets better, like in college, right, the serve and receive battle goes in favor of the receivers. So we're at 35% point scoring and 65% side out. And that's why in college volleyball, you see so many missed serves because the server's trying to serve tough and to put the opponent out of system. Otherwise, they're going to lose that anyway. Now, this directly affects number of rotations per game. So at a novice level, many times you'll see these sets where you don't ever rotate all the way around 6 players. You get stuck at about rotation 3 and you're done, okay? At higher levels of play, of course, it's side out, side out, side out. So like at international levels of play, you can be up to upwards of like 19 or 18 rotations. Now the passing, capabilities, of course, are directly reflected by this, and so the passing rating levels will increase dramatically as the side out level increases, and so too with hitting efficiency and kill percentages. Now the one rule to remember is side out percent plus point scoring percent must be greater than 100 to win, okay? So here are the critical things I learned. The first one was really an epiphany, who's your opponent? Now, the natural tendency is to think it's the team across the net, but it's not, right? Your real opponent is time, okay? And why do I say that? Well, here's an example. If you had two teams at about equal performance levels, and one team could cram 3 seasons of training into one season, wouldn't that team be better? I think the answer is yes, right? Even if your practices weren't super efficient. So the question becomes, how do you use your time? So here are the 4 key insights. The first one is thinking of time and ROI, so return on investment. In finance, if I spend $100, how much will I get back in a certain time? In volleyball, you might want to think about it as if I spend an hour on this drill, how many points will I gain or not lose in this match? Okay? So this mindset will help you immediately rethink your approach to practice. And I have to tell you, I'm at a decent sized club and I watch some of the practices and I look at a drill and I say, wow, what is that thing doing? How is that helping your match performance, right? Now, the next thing is that there are 2 types of ROI. The first is long-term, and long-term is typically skill improvement. Skill improvements can take many seasons to get better, passing, setting, hitting, right? But it's a critical investment you have to make. However, there are short-term investments like positioning and strategy that can be learned quickly. And there are many formation play strategy choices you can use to accelerate your team's win rate. So here's an example, right? If you statted your player's serve receive rating, if you haven't statted it, how do you know that you have the right players on the court? And if you have the right players on the court, are they in the best locations, right? So for example, if one passer out of your 3 best passers is way better, is that person in the middle of the court most of the time where about 80% of the balls go, right? Think about it. So these player selection placement fixes are easy to do once you have the stats to drive your decision making. Now, the third insight is about getting high ROI by being efficient and effective. Now, efficient means to prioritize the key point gain loss areas first. And effective means to use the best methodology that trains your players in the shortest time. So choose the right things and teach it the right way. So here's an example, right? If you've taken stats and have a breakdown of your side out percent by rotation, and any decent stat product should do this. Clearly, Solo Stats does this. Let's look at this chart, right? So rotation 1 is 59, and you can see by the bar chart, right? Rotation 2 is low, and then the other 3 rotations here are good, and then rotation 6 is low, right? So now think about how you allocate your practice time, okay? Instead of practicing all 6 rotations, let's say you spend an hour on this, that would be 10 minutes a rotation. Instead, focus on the 2 killer rotations, 2 and 6, and spend 30 minutes instead, 3 times more time on your 2 bad rotations, right? This is an efficient use of time, right? Fixing the rotations that cause most point losses for you. Being stuck in those rotations causes stress and can lead to even more point losses. So think about it as fill those side out potholes, right? Even it out. Now, the second part is to be effective. Now, one of the things you want to do is any kind of drilling, you want people to be mindful and you really want them to be engaged. So as an example, do a game where you start at 23-23 and you got 2 points to side out. And of course, if you don't do that, then you have to go run liners or do something else, some kind of penalty. All right, so the fourth insight is one we've talked about already, which is context, right? Context determines how you should allocate your time on different skills and tactics. So let's look at the next table. This is a competitiveness chart. And so on the left side, you're losing by 20 points and then you're losing by 5 points to the right, okay? So now think about, where you're allocating your time. And you can see that if you don't win the serve and receive battle, the rest of this isn't going to matter much, right? Think about it in terms of the first ball contact. If your first ball contact is poor, you're going to have to be doing a lot of bettering the ball stuff. And at some point, you can't better the ball when the pass just went way off the court, right? At the same time, as you get better and your side out and your point spread starts to narrow, then you can really start thinking about your set hit game and your dig game. And then of course, blocking is the least important skill and actually the lowest correlation to winning. So as you can see from the chart, right, the less competitive you are, the more time you spend on serving and receiving. And this is important for 2 reasons, right? You need to look for the right players and then where you should focus your time in practice. Now be careful not to over allocate time setting and hitting when your passing and serving skills are subpar, right? Hitting is fun, it's dramatic, but if you don't control the pass, you won't be hitting the ball. Back to Bill Neville, he says, never do tactically what you can't do technically. This means that you don't want to overcomplicate the system you're running when you don't have the right level of ball control. So as an example, why practice quick middle sets when you pass less than 10% perfect passes? You really got to think about this. So here's my real world solution, right? We call it customized coaching, right? Each team, each year is different. Each year your competition changes. And to have high time ROI and be efficient and effective, right, you must customize your coaching to meet your team's competitive needs. Okay, so you can think about it as you can do a little of everything. This is uncustomized coaching, right? Standard drills, standard formations and tactics, or you can do a lot of a few things, right? Customize your players, your tactics and competition, and prioritize around the highest ROI, things you need to improve to win. So my personal example, in 2013, it was my 6th year of coaching volleyball in a public school in Northern California. And by the luck of the draw, in 2 years, I had 2 transfers each year that completely changed the team. So back in 2011, my team went 2-12, and the team gradually got better so that in 2013, we had the potential to win a very tough public school league. So I did my homework, right? I had the best passers on the court, so my outsides and my libero were the best passers on the team. And we trained hard to be great servers, being consistently able to deliver a 38+ mile an hour serve deep into the court. And then we had our play pattern set up so that we would attack the middle as often as we could to provide isolations to the outside. And then our middles worked really hard to chase down the go set and close the block in 1.5 seconds. Now, it didn't work out so easily because in the third league match, we hit one of the top teams and we lost 2-3, getting blown out in the 5th set. So the question was, what went wrong? So I looked through my stats, watched video, and one of the things that came up was our digging percentage was way down at 64. We were in the 70s against the other opponents. So we needed to fix this problem. So the first part was the right player in the right place, okay? So the opponents had one strong outside causing most of the damage for us. And so we needed to slow her down and make our digging easier. So I did 2 things. The first part of it was we moved our best tall outside hitter to the right side because she could hit from the right as well. But that required my setter to be on the left side because we're running a 5-1. So it's kind of an oddball inverted offensive system, but it really allowed us to get our tall player in front of their effective hitter. The second phase was overspeed training, right? The competitive context. So I needed my libero and everybody else on the court to really stand in and dig hard hit balls. So I brought my son in, who was an excellent player, and he's 6'1", 175 at the time, and was hitting about 20% harder than the best hitters in the league. And so the girls got very used to standing in and digging his balls. So the result, we beat these guys in the second round 3-2. It would have been 3-0, except my middle went down in the first set and didn't get back till the end of the second set. So we lost the first 2 sets, and then we went on to win 3-0. And our digging stats were up dramatically. And we completed the season with a 13-1 record, beating the other top teams. And we continued to use the system against the teams that had a single strong hitter. So I'd like to introduce the WinNow personalized coaching system. Right, it's a culmination of a lot of years of volleyball experience, lots of software, and 15 years of coaching. So I've combined my volleyball and software experience to create time-saving, powerful tools with superb ease of use so that you can execute a 30% increase in match wins this season. Right, so many of you are familiar with it. Rotate 1, 2, 3, solo stats, web reports, and solo stats video. Just a quick review, right? So Rotate 1, 2, 3 allows you to do rotation optimization by quickly setting up a templatized set of formations and then modifying from there. And you can do a lot of what-if type of analysis, right? Where can you make changes that would improve your side-out rates, as an example, and where can you make quick substitutions? In high school, as an example, you have 18 substitutions plus a libero. You can do all kinds of single rotation-based subs that might really help your team. Now, the other part of it is that with Rotate 1 to the Pro, you can do matchups, and that's a little example you see here where you can line up and test to see if I shift my starting rotation from 3 to 4 and line up against their 6, how many advantages will I have? And you can test all of these different permutations after you've scouted your opponent and put their play patterns into rotate 1, 2, 3 to compare against yours, right? It's a very powerful tool. In fact, I use this tool extensively during my high school season because I had videotaped my opponent and knew exactly what rotation they started in every time. Solo stats, maybe you use this so you're already familiar with it. You can do both end of rally only, so that a single coach can actually stat and coach at the same time. Or if you have help, you can take all the stats, and I'll show you more examples of this. Now, your data gets backed up from Solo Stats to web reports, and there's like 20 reports in web reports, and you can aggregate any combination of matches, seasons, and to compare exactly how you're doing. You can export to Max Preps, Excel, and box scores. And again, I'll show you the demo of this. And then Solo Stats video, you sync your video to Solo Stats data. It's super simple. I'll show you an example of that in a second. And you can filter out and see exactly a player doing a specific action, a specific rotation against a specific opponent. And it's also super easy to get highlight reels because we provide you with HTML links that you can send to coaches, recruiters, parents, whoever you want. Now, all of this, isn't as useful unless we train you. And so the WinNow personalized coaching will train you to use the tools and stats to come up with the winning combination of player strategies and practice plans. And so the WinNow coaching process, right, has 5 steps. It's setting context and establishing goals, optimizing your rotations, testing, tuning, and then determining the key strategies, tactics, and training methods that you need to win. Now, there's 5 guiding principles. You want to look for high ROI. You want to play the odds, seek simplicity, understand that small things matter, being aggressive, and then through this process, you build a customized coaching plan for your team. So WinNow Coach Training is a 200-slide self-paced training system, right? And we'll hope it'll help you find 4 to 8 points you need to win more matches. So let me dive into a quick demo of the products in an integrated fashion so you can see how they link together. So we'll show how we go from Solo Stats to web reports, and then from web reports to video and rotate 1, 2, 3. But first, let me show you how easy it is to sync video. All right, let me show you a live example of that actually. So first, let me show you the YouTube screen. Sorry about that. Okay, so this is one of the matches, and what you do is you turn your camera on and you shoot the entire set, and then you upload it to YouTube. So this is a Pacific Northwest qualifier, and in this match, it's the first day against 17 Pika, and down here you have the share button. So you want to copy that. Then now we will go over to Solo Stats video. Here we are. Okay, here we go. I will paste it into there, and it's loaded now, and I will double click the first line to start it, and you notice we're doing all the introduction stuff. Now, the video is going to be a little bit jerky on this session because it's going through the webinar channel, but when you're actually watching this live on your machine, it'll be nice and smooth as it's coming off of YouTube. Now, we want to move this playhead to where the game's starting, and I know that it's approximately 1 minute 40 seconds in. And so we're looking for number 55 passing the first ball. That's the stat we're looking at. So I'm going to play the video. Now, number 55 is standing on the left side here, and the ball will go to her. And as soon as she passes, I stop the video. And you notice the video is at 151, right? And the offset down here is at 0 because it starts at the very beginning. We need to get this to 151. So we'll press the sync button here. And now it's updated. And now it's at 151. So if I double click on this row, we should see the ball come straight to her as the first action. Instead of starting at the beginning of the video, it's at 151. Okay. Now to check to see if the synchronization is working properly, we'll move up and look at an action way farther down. And I like my middle hitting, so let's see if I can find her. There she is, number 25. I'll double click on that row and we'll go back and watch. So now here comes the ball, right? Pass, and there's the hitter right there to the floor, okay? So you can see that the synchronization process is that simple. Now, if for whatever reason you get out of sync because let's say the ref makes a crazy call and you go kind of nuts and you forget the stat, you can always resync any entry point in here manually to get it all back to set up right. Okay. All right. So that's the first part of the process of getting your video synchronized. So let's go to the next step. Now the next step is we want to back up our data from SoloStats. So you press the backup data button, and that data will go over to our web report server. And so now let's look at web reports. Okay, so this is web reports. So I've selected my team. Here are the matches. I've selected a qualifier and the Las Vegas showcase. In fact, the showcase just happened this weekend. This is from a couple of years ago. And I'm going to go to the Analyze tab. And now here, let's look more closely. We'll look at the receiving stats because this is where we get killed all the time, right? So now you look at the statistics. Okay, that rotation one's pretty good, 57, 55. Oh, 50 is the low one here, and it goes to 56, 61. Okay, so let's look at rotation 4 and figure out what's going on. Just by clicking on this rotation, we can drill down into the detail of the data. And here, these highlighted areas are telling you these discrepancies in numbers. And the key area we're looking at here is in receive. You notice, right, Bianca has 9 receive errors in this particular rotation for the set of matches that we selected. So now the question becomes, what's going on? Now this is where SoloStats video comes in really handy. Let's go back to SoloStats video, and we'll go to the filter tab. And what we'll do is we'll select her by deselecting the rest. We'll deselect the rotations except for 4. We don't have any in rally, we don't have any earns, and we have one error, which is the receive error and false. Okay, so now we're ready to go. When we click the results tab, what this is doing is a database query. It's finding 18 records against those parameters. And let's go down here to this particular match. This is a great angle. So now Bianca's standing here, number 4, and so we'll see what happens. Okay, there she is. The ball goes to her right, and she shanks it off the court. Let's look at another example. This particular match. Now the camera angle is reversed. We're on the other side of the court, as you'll see here, and she's standing on this corner, up the upper right-hand corner. Almost the same serve, and shank off to the side. Now at this point, we can decide 2 things. We can work with her individually instead of having to take the whole team and really focus on her passing from the right side of her body on that side of the court, or we could make a change in the way we receive. So here's where rotate 1, 2, 3 comes in handy. So here we are in rotate 1, 2, 3. Let's go to formations. Okay, we'll go to receive. All right, so this is rotation 4. This is a 6-2, and so it looks like rotation 1. The setter says right back. Okay, and there they are standing here. We can apply an alternate template here and say, okay, let's try something different. What if we move her out of the way up to the net, and we move the setter up and makes her release a lot easier? Oh, so there's a little line that shows up, right? You see that? The red line is our little rotation checker to make sure that you don't make an illegal overlap. Okay, so it's like a spelling checker, and it keeps you correct all the time. I really love this feature because it's typically late at night when I'm trying to come up with something interesting, and of course in the morning it doesn't work because you did something illegal. Well, this will prevent you from doing that. All right, so I'm going to move my players over, pull my opposite back, and it turns out she's a pretty decent passer. So now we can try this formation, in actual game time and see if it helps out and reduces that pothole that we have in rotation 4. Okay, so that's a quick example of using the 4 products to help us improve our team's performance. All right, so now let's kind of drop back and see what we did, right? So the first part was we did a little synchronization. The next part we did our backup into web reports. And next we looked at the rotations, see our side-out rate, drilled down into the details, found the issue here, and then did a query against that within SoloStats video using our filters. Watch the video in that area to isolate some key examples. And in this case, we've decided that we might try a different formation, right? So that's how quick it is to go through that process. And again, the system will really step you through and point you in the right direction. Okay, so this one is available for download, and I think there's a link on your control panel there if you'd like this, a PDF version of this. So the first one is you really need to take stats. So at practice time, I do this all the time. Get a whiteboard, you put up 10 columns plus 2 more. The last 2 columns are the total for the rating, and then the error rate. It's a little messy, but it looks kind of like this. So I want to give you a real example, right? So all you got to do is total up the passing numbers here. And so basically, put the girls out there. If it's a three-person receive, set them up and just start launching balls at them. And every time they pass, they go and shag the ball, and you put a number up for that. And you want to do this publicly, because what it does is it really increases intensity. And one of the ways you find out that the girls are engaged is when they start arguing with you about the numbers, right? So, they'll say, Coach, that was a perfect pass. That was a 3 pass, Coach. That wasn't a 2 or whatever. That's all good news. Now they're engaged. Now they're competing. And now they're getting intense about the whole thing. Okay? And this way you can find out, who your best passers are. And you need about 5. This day only takes about 30 minutes for 12 players. And you need about 5 days or 50 data points per player before you can really start to see a consistent pattern in who's your best passer and who's not. And also the error rates are super important to look at, because that's the one thing you want to focus on initially. All right. So, for some general numbers, I'd say novice players, under 25% error rates is probably a good one. And then for advanced players, under 10% is a target. We can talk about this in more detail later as you want to talk about your specific data with me. And, you want to get the lowest error rate players on the court first, okay? Now, receive rating, I think, is the second thing you look at, and that's kind of the quality of the pass. And the quality of the pass really only matters if you're running, a fast offense, because frankly, chucking balls into the middle of the court and letting the setter set it high outside might be good enough depending on how your system is run, all right? So now if you are running quick through the middle, then you have to think about, are there ways to make your team improve? So let's say you're passing at about 160. Can you still do this? The answer is absolutely yes. 2 things. One, if your setters are quick and have good eyes and can really place the ball well, and if you have high enough hitting middles, you can actually expand the 3 zone. This is a little bit way of cheating by, increasing the number of threes by expanding the 3 zone and learning how to set from about 7 feet off the net, where the hitters may be 5 feet off the net, and still be able to run a 1 through the middle. I've done this extensively with my teams, and guess what? Your teams will do whatever you ask of them, and try. And so you can experiment and push the envelope a bit, and you may find out that, hey, you know what, we can run this pretty well. Okay, so nice way to create a curve-based passing system where your numbers are actually look better. Now, the second step is something we've already looked at, right? Is side out percentage by rotation, right? So in web reports, we went to the Analyze tab, and you looked at that, and you want to find the lowest percentage rotations and really work on improving the performance there. Okay, so the question becomes, is it a skills issue or is it a formation issue? Because formation issues are really easy to solve in comparison to becoming better passers. Now, the third one is about serves, right? What is your error rates here? Because I'll guarantee if you don't keep that ball in play for most types of competition, it's going to be a real problem, because you're just giving away the rotation. And particularly at lower levels of play, where your opponent's error rates are very high when they get the ball, okay? It's super important that you keep the ball in play. Now, Hugh McCutcheon's big gripe is that the USA is like one of the worst countries in serving. Whenever they go to international competition, right, the players really have to improve their performance, because here people think you either serve tough or you serve in, and in reality, you have to do both, right? Serve tough and put the ball in the court. I like to practice going deep and hard and using a radar gun to track at 38 miles an hour and try to keep the error rates below 10%. Now, if you don't have a radar gun and you're trying to serve into this deep zone here, you can get an elastic band, right? Tie it to a carabiner with a little rubber band and attach it to the antenna. And then you'll have about a 30-inch gap between the top of the net and the bottom of the band. And you want to serve through that gap deep into the court. And in order for that ball to make it back there, it has to go at least 38 miles an hour. Okay? So that's a nice, cheap way to get around the fact that you don't have a radar gun. And I do a little drill like this where we score depending on where the ball lands, and whether it goes over the band or through the gap. Right? Okay, so now the last one is tuning your rotations, right? Now, we talked earlier about how many rotations are actually happening in your matches. This is something you ought to go look at very, very carefully, because I got to tell you, if you're having an odd number like about 9, that means that the first 3 rotations are happening twice. The second 3 rotations are only happening once. So you want to stack your best servers and your best side out rotations up front. Okay, so the concept is score early, score often. And the beauty of this system is if you can put your opponent in a hole, it's really harder to dig out of that. And most teams aren't great at that whole perseverance thing, right? They tend to kind of start looking at each other and doubting each other, and now they do even worse, right? So if you can create these two waves of effective scoring, then you can crush your competition, by having that kind of a lead, right? So think about how many rotations your typical match is going. Okay, so this is just a short example of the methods we teach, and again, this sample is available for download, and if you don't get the download here, we will send it as a thank you email probably tomorrow, okay? And there's a lot more layers, and the WinNow self-paced training will provide way more depth about other ways to look at your systems and your team to make improvements. All right, so let's talk about the personalized coaching system and what's included in it, all right? So the first part is it's a 1-year pro bundle, right, which is worth $154, and so it's Solo Stats Pro, Rotate Pro, Web Reports Pro, and Solo Stats Video. And then the WinNow Coach Training, which is a 200-slide self-paced training, which is $149. And on top of this, because it's personalized for you, right, we provide unlimited annual email support and 2 hours of phone time with me, okay? So it's worth about $600, and we're making it available for $199. And so, if you have the Pro bundle already, it's going to cost you just $45 more. All right, and we have our satisfaction guarantee. So if you follow our methods, right, and your team doesn't improve as much as we'd like you to, right, then you'll get a 100% refund. Just ask for it. Okay. So now to purchase, you just go to winnowvb.com/buy, and then if you have any questions, you just email me at kyle@rotate123.com. All right. Now we can open it up to Q&A and use the questions sections to type in your questions, right? And while I'm waiting for the first set of questions, let me show you a couple things here. The one thing I discovered this year, thanks to one of the coaches out there who talked to me about this, he asked, hey, will your system run on the Kindle Fire 7-inch because it's $50? And the answer is yes. I've been using it all club season since January. And you can see a little picture of that. That's actually my team right there. And I've been coaching mostly varsity and 17-18s, but this year I've gone all the way back to 13s and developmental teams. So it's been a whole new experience and a lot of fun, right? So this product, you can outfit an entire club for the price of one iPad, okay? So like $500 for an iPad or 10 Kindle Fires. And guess what? If you drop one of these and break it, who cares, right? Because I have to tell you, every season people damage their iPads, and it's kind of a sad thing. The good news is if they're running Solo Stats, we back up the data to web reports, so typically you don't lose any data, right? Okay, so let's see. Let me start answering the next first set of questions. The first question is, what does personalized mean? Personalized means that we will spend time. I will personally spend time with you to go over your numbers, and hopefully you'll go through the WinNow slides first and to understand the system a little bit better, and then from there we can do some Q&A and start tuning up your team and figuring out what kinds of drills and games should you be playing to improve your team's performance. Where are the weak points that you need to improve? Okay. The next question is, what if I have the Pro Bundle or some other products already? The answer is any subscription that's still valid will be prorated towards your purchase. So, if you have half a year's worth of a bundle, as an example, it's like a $100 credit or something, you can apply that, so it only costs you $99 to get the whole rest of the system. Okay. Let's see, other questions here. Oh yeah, here's one that comes up a lot. I'm just going to post this up because it's almost every time we get this question come up. This is about two things. One is about how to do assists, okay? And so assists for both setting and for blocks. Let's do the setting one. So typically in a setup page, you've assigned a setter, right? So in this case, it's 35. And let's say that somebody else sets the ball. So what you want to do is just enter the kill. So you press the player, double tap the spike, and then this assist button at the bottom will light up. You press assist, and then the player who set the ball if it wasn't the setter. Now, if it was an overpass, you press the pink them button, or excuse me, their player button, okay, down here, and that's it, right? So that's how you deallocate the assist from your setter so she's not overcredited with too many assists, right? So that was the first one. For blocks, it's pretty much the same way. Just enter either blocker. So it's player, block,
right? Double tap that, and then assist will come up, press assist and the second blocker, and you're done, okay? So that's how you handle assist. The other question that comes up is about the fast and rally buttons. You notice the left side is the standard mode where all the players show up. And on the right side, you have actually 7 slots for the players. And the advantage of the fast and rally buttons, which you select here, right? This is the mode here, standard capture versus fast and rally, right? Is that, of course, the in rally stats, you just double tap the one next to the player. So if number 9 made a dig, you just double tap dig. You don't have to tap her. If 43 made a hit and play, just double tap that, okay? And the rest of the entries are the same, so it's player and the action, whether it's a earns point, spike, or an error, right? So that's how you can really accelerate that whole process. And the other thing to remember is that when you have the pro version of the product, you can push the screen up, and underneath it is are the stats for the matches, right? So you can slide the capture screen up with your fingers, and you'll be able to see the match stats right below it. Okay. All right. So any other questions here? Yep. Here's another one. Yeah. Can you talk about the point tree? Yeah. Let me do that. Let me see if I can locate an example of it. Hang on. Let me grab that. Okay. So if you've got Web Reports Pro under Other Reports, the point tree appears here. Okay, and it looks like this. Here's your game 1, game 2 in the match, and it's us, them. So total points 25, them 11. You can see where the points were being scored. So you made 15 kills, they only made 7, right? You had they had 2 hitting errors, you had 2, so pretty even there, right? But you had a pile of aces compared to them, and then number of service errors pretty much the same, and you outblocked them, right? So it shows you kind of how you're winning your points in a match. And this is really helpful game time because you can really tell, am I serving tough enough or am I not serving tough enough? You can look at the side out numbers and say, wow, if their side out rate's really high and you're not scoring very many aces, but you're also not making very many service errors, you need to start taking chances and serving tougher. Okay, so this is a great indicator, and this is really thanks to Jamie Morrison. It's one of the innovations he helped me with, and it's one of the few things I use consistently at game time. Okay, keep typing your questions in. Got a little blank here. Okay, let's go to the next one. Oh yeah, the question was, how do you share your videos? And let's go back to SoloStat video, and let's go back to the result. Oh, this is the results page here. There's a button here that says show individual video links. When I click this, right, a bunch of URLs appear, and these will actually go directly to YouTube from anywhere, and then go to the specific video, and then enter at like 1 minute 56 seconds and stop at 1 minute 60 seconds or something, right? It'll give you just that little clip. It's a great way to get like a highlight reel or show a player exactly the places where they need to improve. Okay, super easy to share these results. All right. Okay. Let's see. Go. We talked about. So here's another question that's come up. How do we compare to Huddle? Now, many of you, because of your football programs, have one of these blanket licenses to Huddle, and many people have asked, how do you either compare to Huddle or can you talk to Huddle? 2 parts of this thing. The first part of it is that Huddle is really designed for the football side of the house, which is that football teams have a lot of coaches and not very many games, right? So they're used to doing what's called video breakdown, which is a manual process of breaking down each down and then putting little, telestrating things in and such so that they can go and review that. That same technique in volleyball, not very useful because we play a lot of games, we have a lot of touches, and you literally will end up spending as much time as you spent at the match. And who can spend like a day at a tournament's worth of statting, at home? I mean, it'll make you, I've done that before, it'll make you crazy, right? So we prefer to do the synchronization process, and that's something that we're working towards with Huddle as well. So there'll be some integration work that'll happen later in the year. Okay, let's see. Next question. Let's see. Can I have other people gathering stats? Now, the ideal way to do that would clearly be to have everybody doing it electronically. That's some piece of technology that we are working towards. We don't have that right now. Maybe in the next year we'll be able to put that together. I have a very long list of advanced features that we'd like to create, and that's one of them. But in the interim, there is a way to do this where you can get help from other people. In web reports, if you go to the matches page, you can have one person doing just the end of rally stats, which is pretty easy to cover and still coach. And then you can have other people hand tabulating both digs and hitting attempts. So let's, for example, look at this particular match, expand it out, and you notice this input button. If you press the input button, now you can actually enter the hand collected stats. So you can put the hitting attempts, the digs, and the block attempts in here. Okay, so you can spread that out among several people and just have them hand tally that. Very, very easy to do. And in fact, I'm doing this with my team this year because I have a new person taking stats and she's not fast enough yet to get all of the in-rally touches. Once her tempo gets better, then we'll have her do it, electronically. Right? So this is a nice little workaround that helps you to get all the stats you want and still, not require a ton of training to do that. Okay? Okay, here's another question, and it seems like everybody asks this. So, how do you use solo stats to gather practice stats? And the answer is, unless it's a scrimmage, you really don't. Solo stats, is designed around the volleyball match, and so it's got all these hardwired things with sighting out and rotations, and those things really get in the way of taking freeform stats. So, what we're working on this season is to create a practice stat product that will be more like a spreadsheet where you can define a drill and the stats you want in that drill, and then be able to just collect those and then back it up to a practice stat web reports, and you have all the tallies that you want to see. You can really go through a closer evaluation of all your players. Now, that's something I want right now. It probably won't be done until summer. But if any of you are interested in any of our beta testing process, in fact, one of the things that we have immediately happening is we have serve ratings and free ball ratings, which are just about ready to go. So if anybody wants to help test that, send me an email. And if you want to also test the training stat app, please send me an email and specify what you'd like to test, as well as what platform you're on, where it's Apple or Android. Okay. So that'll help me, and I'd love to have as much feedback as I can from you because you're the ultimate user. Now, the practice stat application has one other great feature, and that feature is, just like solo stats, it will synchronize the video. I shoot a lot of practice video, but it's really hard to break it down. And now every single one of those touches the girls makes can be broken out so that Megan can see all of her touches from the last practice. You can highlight and say, I want you to watch the way you're digging. Your platform's a little off, whatever, right? Send it to her and she can watch herself. And now she doesn't have to watch the whole video to find just the few touches she made. Now she can watch all her touches in one shot. Okay? So that's a feature that comes with, that will be part of the Solo Stats, the practice app, right? Okay, let's see, what else do we have here? Oh, yeah, so it's something I talked about briefly, which is, I have a pile of stats. How will you help me with this? Now, in that little takeaway section, I already showed you how to focus on at least the beginning part, which is really looking at your passers and focusing on the passing error rates first before you look at the quality. And then the next part of it, of course, is to look at the side out percentages. Okay, so those are the methods by which you want to systematically look at narrow sets of numbers so that you don't try to look at everything at one time. Now, beyond that, I can provide additional help, and also the training provides a systematic way of looking at the numbers as well. All right, so those are all the pieces that are available. And again, I'm always available to help out. And after this session, if you have any questions, definitely send me an email around the numbers that you have that can help you evaluate. Okay. All right. Let's see. I think that might be the last one. Steve, do we have any more questions coming up here? Any others? Nope, it doesn't look like it. So thank you very much for attending. Again, if you have any questions, let me bring back my email here. It's Kyle at rotate123.com. And again, if you're interested in purchasing, it's winnowvb.com/buy. Okay. So thanks again for attending, and have a great season.